Marcus Freeman understands the quiet skepticism that follows moves like these. It trails every headline, hums beneath every transfer portal announcement, and lingers in the unspoken question fans and rivals alike tend to ask when former five-star prospects leave powerhouse programs without the resume to match their recruiting rankings. If they couldn't break through at Ohio State or Alabama, why will it be different at Notre Dame? Freeman isn't running from that question. In fact, by bringing Quincy Porter and Keon Keeley to South Bend, he is leaning directly into it, wagering that development, environment, trust, and timing can matter just as much as raw talent, and in some cases even more. The modern transfer portal has flattened reputations. It no longer cares where you were ranked coming out of high school or how breathlessly your commitment announcement was covered. Production is currency now. And Notre Dame, like nearly every program with championship aspirations, has dipped into the portal not just to supplement depth, but to search for upside that may have gone untapped elsewhere. Freeman's approach this cycle, however, has been deliberate rather than desperate. The Irish are not hoarding transfers or trying to win an off-season press conference. Instead, they are placing a targeted, high-stakes bet on potential over proof, on belief over box scores, and on their own ability to cultivate growth where it previously stalled. Quincy Porter arrived in college football carrying expectations that felt almost unfair. As a five-star wide receiver out of the 2025 class, he was viewed as a future centerpiece for Ohio State's offense, a program that has built a reputation as a factory for elite pass catchers. The assumption was simple. Talent like Porter's would eventually force its way onto the field. Reality, as it often does in Columbus, proved more complicated. Ohio State's wide receiver room is not merely talented, it is relentlessly competitive, stacked with blue-chip prospects all fighting for the same limited snaps. Porter found himself battling not just defenders on Saturdays, but depth charts, timing, and opportunity. The result was a career that never quite ignited, just 4 receptions for 59 yards, numbers that barely hint at the player scouts once believed he would become. Keon Keeley's path followed a similarly frustrating arc, though on the opposite side of the ball and under a different kind of pressure. A former 5-star defensive lineman, Keeley arrived at Alabama with the physical tools that typically translate quickly in Tuscaloosa. Yet Alabama's defensive front is its own proving ground, a rotation heavy with future NFL players where earning snaps often takes time, patience, and circumstance. Over 2 seasons, Keeley managed just 191 total snaps, with his most extensive action coming against Oklahoma this past year. For a player once projected as a disruptive force, those numbers represent not failure, but stagnation, the kind that can quietly derail a career if left unaddressed. Both Porter and Keeley entered the transfer portal carrying the same underlying concern, that 2026 would look too much like 2025 if they stayed put. The fear wasn't regression, but invisibility, being stuck in developmental limbo while the clock kept ticking. Notre Dame offered something different, not just in playing time projections, but in philosophy. Freeman and his staff pitched a vision centered on individualized development, clear roles, and a belief that these players could still become impact contributors rather than rotational footnotes. For Freeman, this is not merely about filling roster holes, it is about identity. Since taking over as head coach, he has spoken often about culture, accountability, and growth, about building a program that doesn't just attract talent, but maximizes it. The decision to bring in Porter and Keeley is a test of that vision. These are not plug-and-play transfers with proven statistical production. They are reclamation projects only in the most superficial sense, players whose recruiting profiles suggest a ceiling that remains tantalizingly high, even if the path to reaching it has been uneven. The stakes surrounding their arrival are heightened by Notre Dame's overall portal strategy this offseason. The Irish are not flooding the roster with transfers. Their incoming portal class is relatively small, with just a handful of additions and perhaps 1 or 2 more still to come. That restraint amplifies the importance of every decision. When you aren't hedging your bets with volume, each individual wager carries more weight. Other portal additions, like defensive backs DJ McKinney and Jaden Sanders, come with a measure of security, players who can point to previous seasons and tangible production as evidence of what they bring. Porter and Keeley do not have that luxury.
What they have instead is projection, pedigree, and urgency. Freeman understands that urgency cuts both ways. For the players, this is a chance to reset narratives, to prove that circumstances, not capability, limited their early careers. For the program, it's a referendum on development. Notre Dame has long sold itself as a place where players grow not just athletically, but personally, where structure and support can elevate those willing to invest in the process. Turning former five-star prospects into meaningful contributors would be the most visible validation of that pitch. There is also an unspoken comparison baked into this gamble. By taking players who struggled to carve out roles at Ohio State and Alabama, Freeman is implicitly asserting that Notre Dame can do something those schools did not, or perhaps could not, given their depth and dynamics. It is not an indictment of those schools so much as a declaration of confidence. Development is not one-size-fits-all, and sometimes a change of scenery is less about escape and more about alignment. Different coaching voices, different expectations, different pressures can unlock different results. Freeman has been careful not to promise immediate stardom. The message has been consistent. Opportunity will be earned, not gifted, and potential alone does not guarantee playing time. But there is also an acknowledgement that Notre Dame's roster construction and competitive needs create a clearer runway for both Porter and Keeley than what they left behind. In South Bend, they are not just another name in a five-star crowd, they are investments. The broader implications extend beyond these two players. Freeman's tenure is entering a phase where results must increasingly match ambition. Recruiting momentum, cultural buy-in, and strong evaluations all matter, but ultimately the bar at Notre Dame is set by postseason success. To make consistent runs at the college football playoff, the Irish need difference makers, players who can tilt games in critical moments. Finding those players exclusively through high school recruiting is no longer enough in a sport reshaped by the portal. The ability to identify, acquire, and develop transfer talent has become a competitive necessity. That is why this bet resonates so strongly. If Porter emerges as a reliable, dynamic option in the passing game, if Keeley becomes a disruptive force along the defensive line, it will reinforce the idea that Notre Dame is not merely a destination for proven stars, but a place where stalled careers can be reignited. It would also send a message to future portal entrants watching closely, players weighing where their own potential might be best realized. Of course, the risk is real. If these players fail to break through again, the narrative will flip quickly. Questions about evaluation, development, and projection will grow louder. Freeman knows he won't be able to make his case definitively until the results are visible, until Saturdays provide the answers that spring workouts and fall camp cannot. This time next year, the verdict will be clearer, not just on Porter and Keeley, but on Freeman's belief that Notre Dame can consistently turn potential into production. For now, the gamble is set. Two former five-stars arrive in South Bend carrying unfinished stories, and a head coach stands beside them, confident enough to believe that what went unrealized elsewhere can still flourish under his watch. In an era obsessed with immediate returns, Marcus Freeman is betting on development, patience, and the enduring power of belief, trusting that sometimes the most important stars are the ones that haven't fully burned.